What's up, everybody? My name is Patrick Jones, and I am a former hitting coach in the Baltimore Orioles organization. Now I work with hitters in the private sector here in Cincinnati, Ohio, with baseball and softball hitters. And I also help baseball players with college recruiting. Lastly, I host a podcast, which is what you're getting ready to watch or listen to right now. And where each week I bring on a coach, college coach, professional, high school, baseball, and softball. And I interview them and find out, what are some of the things that they're doing that has helped some of the players that they're working with, what they're looking for from a recruiting standpoint, if it's a college coach. And I've done over 260 of these now. It's been an unbelievable experience. And on today's episode, we have Rachel Huggins. And Rachel is just starting her first year as hitting coach at Eastern Illinois University. Previously, she was at Bradley, which is where she graduated and was a player too. And so Rachel just starting out, literally just got the job at Eastern Illinois, but it was fun to be able to pick her brain about what she's seen at the college level as a coach, previously at Bradley, as a player, some of the things that she's looking for. So all around, it was a fun conversation, and I appreciate her coming on the show. If you haven't, please make sure to go to patrickjonesbaseball.com/develop. Put your name and email in, and you'll be on our email list. And we send out, lots of free content via email. We're not going to spam your box. If anything, it's maximum one email a week. So patrickjonesbaseball.com/develop. Put your first name and email in, and you'll be on the email list, and you won't miss out on any of the free content. Ladies and gentlemen, here is now the episode with Rachel Huggins. All right, we now welcome on the show Rachel Huggins. Rachel, thanks for coming on today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So you just started your new job at Eastern Illinois University. You're the hitting coach there, and previously were at Bradley, and you played there at Bradley too. And I read up on you. It said you actually went there originally as a walk-on. So take me through like your own recruiting process as a high school player. Like I'd assume that you had maybe some other places to play, but you still decided to walk on somewhere.
Yeah, God. It's been a long time ago, but yes. So I was kind of a late recruit for Bradley. I had actually committed to go the junior college route. And then Amy and Chris Malvo, they came to like my high school state game or just regional game, something in kind of postseason. And they were looking at my shortstop and they saw me hit. And, Mal called me after the game and just asked me if I'd have any interest. And they brought me in for a camp. And then I think I had a visit after that. And I knew right away that, that was where I wanted to be. And I was going the JUCO route to hopefully, end up at a school like that afterwards. So I thought, my opportunity is coming. It's later than I wanted, but I went ahead and took it. So I'm very fortunate that they, chose to bring me on their squad.
As you look back into your high school career, knowing what you know now, knowing how college went, is there anything you would have worked on or focused more on as a player in high school to get ready for college?
Yeah. I didn't play like super competitive travel ball, or that wasn't quite at the level of extent as to what it is now. So I think I definitely would have taken that route a little bit more seriously. Like we were a competitive travel ball team, but we didn't play the kind of ball that these kids are playing nowadays. So I definitely that's something that I would have amped up a little bit more. But I also played, 3 sports, so I had to manage my time that way a little bit. But yeah, you always look back and think, man, I wish I would have done things differently, or I could have been so much better if I would have, listened to my coach a little bit more. But yeah, I think doing a little bit more of the travel ball route probably would have been better for me. But
What other sports did you play?
I played basketball and volleyball.
Okay, all the way through high school?
Yep. Yeah. So that's something that I think I'll always be big on. Is it gets harder and harder for kids to play multiple sports, but I think it's healthy for them, like mentally and physically. And just being able to manage that time is very difficult, but I do think it is super important for kids to do that.
So when you're, and I know you literally just started at Eastern Illinois, but maybe we'll talk about previously. I mean, in the recruiting process, do you look for players who have played multiple sports? I know that's kind of a hot topic now.
I always ask them, or sometimes, most of the times they'll bring it up, but it's not like I would ever turn a kid away because they don't play multiple sports. But I think it does provide like value when they just value to their athleticism. When you get kids that can play multiple sports, and usually, in my experience, they suffer from less injuries, right? They're not doing the same sport all year round, you know, body movements the same way. So they're getting to play different sports, seeing different things. So I think it can be helpful from that aspect.
What are you looking for when you're out on the road recruiting? Like, are there certain things that you like when you're, watching a game or watching a player that really stands out and you're like, I want that player?
Yeah. I think, you're looking for usually athletic kids, right? But that stuff aside, you're trying to find hardworking kids, kids who are good teammates, kids who are hustling on the field, and really their body language, all those kind of things. Like, is that how you would want them representing your program? And then like little things with their athleticism, you can pick apart and see what you want to fix and what you can't take on. But I think the biggest thing is like the hustle and the effort that they give, and what are they giving to their teammates, and all that kind of stuff is really what's important.
Do you look for defense first type players or offense first? Like, what do you, because I know obviously defense is so important,
Yeah.
especially at the college level. You can get away with stuff at the high school level you can't in college. So is there something you look for, like they can hit, but I have to have someone who can play defense?
Right. I think it just depends on like what your needs are for that class or what your needs are for your team right then. But I don't think I go out there and, it just kind of depends on what you're looking for, like if you got enough people with defense and you're low on hitting, then that's what you're looking for, right? So just kind of all depends.
How many players do you normally try to bring in per class?
Usually all depends, but you try to keep it around like 3 to 4, with we have a little bit, we're mid-major, so a little bit of smaller size roster. So around like 20 to 23 kids is usually where we're at.
And then how many other pitchers that you would tend to want to bring in too? Or if you have, I mean, how many pitchers would you normally recruit in a class?
Mm, I think you normally you'd like to have two, so 1 to 2, but again, it kind of that's a if everything works out great, which as never happens, but yeah, it's usually nice to have like two in every class, or you get two in your freshman class, you take one in the next two, it's balance it out that kind of way, but
Did you always know that you wanted to get into coaching when you were playing?
I didn't. When I graduated from Bradley, I thought I already knew like what I was going to do. I kind of already had a job lined up, and about a month or a little less than a month went by maybe, and I called my former head coach and my former boss Amy, and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I think I'm making the wrong decision, and I think I, should be in coaching. And she was just like, yeah, I think you should too, and she's always trying to get people, the youth into coaching. And she was like, why don't you come be my volunteer? So she, her and I, my assistant coach at the time, she, helped me out and let me live with her, but they were really big on getting me back into the game. So I'm super thankful for them for doing that. But I did not always know. I think I just once you're out of it for a little bit, you realize, what you should and shouldn't be doing.
What were you gonna do?
I was gonna just go work at a local company back home that I'd been interning with for a while. So I kind of got things set up that way. And would have just been a desk job,
Yeah.
nothing,
Yeah.
nothing quite like what I'm doing now. So I'm definitely glad that I took this route for sure.
What are some of the things that have stood out to you once you started coaching? Like what are some of the things like right away that you like learned and realized that you could or couldn't do to when you started coaching right away?
I probably realized that I never appreciated my coaches enough for the job that they do. But um, yeah, I mean, there is a lot more that goes into coaching than I think that anybody realizes. The first question that people usually ask, like when they ask what you do and you say that you're college coach, they're like, well, what else do you do? Like what else? You teach something? Or I'm like, I'm lucky to get like home by 8. So um I think that was, my first year in, I was like, wow, this is a lot. And I definitely should have appreciated everything that people did for me a lot more. But I just loved every second of it. So I don't yeah.
What's your favorite part about it?
Um I think just developing the kids and working with, the athletes and the relationships that you build with them. You're at a really like crucial time for them and the growth that they like their growth as people. So it's really cool to see where they come in as freshmen and where they end up as seniors, and like, just being a part of that process and getting to grow with them, I think is really huge. So the wins and losses are awesome, and you get to see their achievements and all that stuff, but like getting to be a part of like shaping, them as humans too, I think is
Yeah.
really special.
What's your hitting philosophy like?
Well, I was coached by Chris Malvo. So, really, I was really fortunate that I got to go to Bradley because he kind of just changed my viewpoints on hitting completely. And way back then, no one was really talking about some of the things that they're talking about now. And so I had no idea kind of like I never thought of hitting the way that he kind of introduced it to me. So I think going from being a player to being a coach, there was no question that I wanted to take that philosophy on with me because I got to do it myself and I got to see the results. And I think it's something that it's really been fun to see like grow amongst the sports as the years go on.
What are some of the things that he introduced to you that kind of like made you think about things differently?
Just really like using your body to its fullest potential. You see a lot of hitters that are very like upper body dominant. So really trying to get the most out of your swing, and maximize everything that you have, as well as being able to adjust and adapt to, 6 different pitches, 6 different zones, and being able to be successful at it. So that's something that is super huge that we talk about and do.
Yeah, how do you go about helping hitters build their own approach when you have 6 different pitches and different parts of the zone and things like that? Like, is there something that you like doing to help individualize that for them?
Yeah, I think everybody's got their own thing, but it can get a little bit overwhelming. So you got to keep it as simple for them as possible. Every hitter is going to be able to take on more information or take on a little bit less, but um, really just knowing the kind of pitcher that you're going to face and making sure that you're preparing for throughout the week or the day before or whatever, and knowing what you want to hit and what you don't want to hit, and just always having multiple plans as well, right? Because you're preparing for one thing, but you got to know that, well, what are we going to do if, we need an A, B, C, and D. So that's something that we talk a lot about too.
Do you have like a team wide philosophy when it comes to hitting?
Yeah, I mean, we're always just trying to, go up there and have quality at bats, hit the ball as hard as possible and make things happen. I'm I haven't got to work with these kids quite yet here at Eastern, but I think that, they're a really strong offensive program, and I can, already tell that they take on a lot of the things that I teach as well. So I think it's going to be a good mix for both of us.
How are you planning on going about helping just build that relationship with them? Like, do you do like a questionnaire that you give them to get to know them better? Like, is it just with time that you just spend with them? Like, how are you planning on going about building those relationships with them?
Yeah, I think it's just like time. And some of them, they're already getting back on campus, so they're already popping by and getting to meet them that way and reaching out and talking to them as much as you can. But I think it just goes with time, and the more you get to spend with them, the more they get to know you, and know that you care about them. They'll pretty much jump on board with anything that you have.
Yeah. What's a typical fall like? I know, like in the past, like when you've done, at Bradley, like how did you go about setting up the fall as the hitting coach?
Yeah. Well, you have 8-hour weeks, and then 20-hour weeks. So really the biggest building part is in those individual type workouts where you're with those small groups and you get like 45 minutes or whatever it is that, you get with them, and you're really just building your mechanics and your philosophy. And it's like 3-4 months of solely just getting to hammer some of that stuff in them so that you see those results. Then we play pretty much the whole month of September, and that's team practice, so you get that work in too, but it's a little bit more on the go. So um it's pretty much the individuals, and honestly the time that they put into it too, when they're just going on the field on the weekends, or doing whatever it is that they're doing. But really that individual work is where it's kind of all built.
What do you like focusing on in that individual work? Is there certain constraints or drills or machines that you like to use?
Yeah, all of the above. We really just kind of hit hard anything that we're going to see in the spring, and really just building up our mechanics and making sure that we develop how we're going to adjust to pitches that we're going to see, all that kind of stuff, and seeing live pitching too, as much as we can, so that we're ready for that in the fall and in the spring. But yeah, just getting to see what the work that they've done over the summer, and then just kind of going and building from that.
What are when you say like individualize and being able to like build from where they did over the summertime, do you give them plans on like what you want them to improve upon over the summer?
I might be different than a lot of coaches, but for the summertime, I don't. I at Bradley, I had a couple kids that played like some women's ball, or they pick up, with some teams and do some stuff like that. But the summer, I feel like, is kind of their time. That usually they'll get like a workout, like a weight room workout or something like that. But really, that's all on them and what their goals are and what our goals are as a team. And if they want the results, if they want to reach those goals, they're going to put in the work. So they're going to need to take a little bit of break right as soon as season is over, but they'll get after it you know over the summertime. So I usually don't ever have to worry about that.
From
Winter
a
break, we'll talk a little bit more about what you should specifically be doing, but they're pretty good. They're always hardworking.
what like you said right there, what they specifically should be doing, like what is an example of what you would want them to be doing?
Kind of depends on the kid, but maybe you have a kid who struggled all year, like with off speed, or she's really having a hard time like encompassing some of the stuff that you're working on. Just giving her specific drills that she needs to continue through Christmas break. Like you really need to work on drill ABC, and make sure you see some live arm, make sure you get in front toss if you don't have a machine, whatever. Just kind of lay it out so they don't ever like question, well, I only had off a tee because that's all I thought I should be working on. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So
Yeah.
just making sure that you guys are communicating, and so they know their stuff. But
What's your take on random versus block practice, right? Like being able to really challenge them in practice off machines or live, and just making it so it's nice easy flips and tee work. Like where do you find that balance?
My personal, like what I do is I think there's room for both, but I very much so challenge them as hard as I can, right? Because you don't want to not be challenged in practice and then get into a game and wonder why, well, I just struck out 3 times, right? Or what am I going to do because I'm failing? You know what I mean? So you have to
Yeah.
make sure that they understand what failure is, how to fail, and not only that, but just how to make the adjustments and do all that. So they don't always enjoy doing that, but it usually it's what's best for them and how they, how they're going to incorporate that and be successful in a game. So I think that there's a time and place where they need that the confidence boost and to feel good and in those kind of workouts, and you can kind of sporadically um, schedule those out. But I think for the most part, you got to make sure that you're pushing them and you're challenging them on a daily basis.
Yeah, 100%. From a mechanic standpoint, what do you like to see out of your hitters? Are there certain positions that you want your hitters to get in, or do you have a philosophy on that?
We're in recruiting, is that what you said?
Recruiting, or even when you have your own players, right? I mean, like, I'm sure there a lot of them are still working on stuff and they don't have perfect movement. I mean,
Right.
you obviously they're a lot better than some of the high school kids, but I didn't know if there's like there's certain things that you're looking for from a mechanical standpoint, and then like how do you go about trying to help them with that if there are?
Yeah, absolutely. And really it's just like I said, as soon as they get in here, we talk about it, we watch film on it, we do the drills on it, and then just getting them to incorporate that and understanding how to time pitching. That's kind of like one of the hardest things to when they first get on campus or when they first get here is really understanding how, timing of pitching actually works. But yeah, there's definitely all coaches are going to have certain things that they look for in their programs, but just finding a way that works best for you and then, making sure that the kids are understanding it and, every kid's going to be different. So are they watching film on it and, what can you do to help them get to that position that you want them to be in?
What are some of those positions that you want them to be in?
Um, I mean, like I said, I'm pretty much a lot like lower half base. We're always talking about making sure that you're loading up your body in the right position, right? So trying to load everything into your pelvis and just always trying to keep your barrel path inside the ball. So that's kind of a little bit of the verbiage that we use, and it takes a little bit for them to build um, and get a good understanding of that.
Do you utilize technology at all?
We do. I know that here at Eastern they've got, Rapsodo and Blast and some of those things. So the kids have been using those for quite a while. So
What like have you used those before at Bradley or?
no, we didn't have either of those at Bradley. So pretty much I all of the video that I did was solely like based on my own, whatever. I've got some programs on my phone that I would use or iPad. And we just set it up and we'd run through it that way. So
Okay, so there's just certain stuff that you're looking for and they shown on video. I think video, I mean, is always probably going to be the best piece of technology, right? Because the players can visually see it. And, when they just look at numbers, definitely very beneficial, like no question about it. But I just think humans, like we learn best through pictures and images and videos. And so them being able to visually see, what you're trying to get them to do is probably the best way to go about it anyway.
right. And I think like there's place for all that stuff. If you have access to using hit tracks and all of those, those bigger types of things, that stuff can be really helpful, especially when you live in the Midwest, right? Where you're hitting in a batting cage for 3 months out of the year and you need to get your kids motivated a little bit. That's a great way to do it. And there's big things that you can take from those. You just got to know, like, it's not all in the numbers, right? Just kind of like
Mhm.
you said. So you just got to be careful what you're looking at and making sure that it's translating on the field. So
Is there something that from a coaching standpoint that you want to get better at?
oh, all the time. Yeah, I mean, I think we're always trying to grow and evolve, every chance that we get. So I'm still relatively young in the game, but after this is going to be like my 7th year coaching or something, yeah, I'm always trying to reach out to, colleagues and, what can I do? How can I be better at technology, or what can I do for my defense, or you know what I mean? So I think that that's something the softball community is really big on. They're always trying to, find ways to be better in that aspect. And I think that's what the sport needs. So it's good to see.
Is there anything specific right now that you're working on or you're trying to learn?
Well, this summer, just within like kind of my transition period, it was coaches, we don't ever really get a whole lot of time to like reflect, after the season. It's pretty much you're done playing and then here I am recruiting. So that was nice to be able to just go through like all my, at least the past years, go through all my hitting things, figure out, what I liked about what I was doing, what I didn't like about what I was doing, and just really, kind of study up on my stuff and, reach out to people. So I did find, some great benefit there that, we don't always get because it's just, we never stop going. So that was probably my biggest area, was just tidying up, my hitting.
Okay. What about like tidying up your hitting?
Yeah, it probably sounded not in a good or a bad way, but just like being able to assess my year, you know what I mean? And say like, this is what we need to do better. Even if it wasn't with my specific Bradley girls, I'm coming into a new team. This is what we need to do. And, this is what my goals are and my drills, that kind of stuff. So,
Are there certain do you have like a couple favorite drills that you do?
um, I don't think like universal, no. Kind of just depends on the player. We kind of just get into that depending on what they kind of need in their swings.
I wasn't sure if like if you're working in small groups, if there's certain things or constraints typically that you'll have them start in.
It just kind of depends on what each individual will need. They'll be in a group setting, but each player is going to kind of need something a little bit different.
Yeah. Okay. I gotcha. Yeah. I mean, that is the fun and frustrating thing, no doubt about it, when it comes to coaching, is there's definitely more to do it than just one.
Yeah.
Um, how do you think a hitting coach should be evaluated?
Mm, you mean go into that a little bit more for me? What do you mean?
So, I mean, if you say like, if I say like Rachel Huggins and hitting coach, say like, what is she a good hitting coach? Is she not? Like, how do you think someone should be evaluated as a hitting coach?
I think it all depends on what, somebody's looking for in their program or whatever it is, that it would be. But I think a lot of it is going to go off of the numbers that you produce, right? Like stats, wins and losses. But I also think it goes off of relationships and how you work with your players, and just kind of that piece a little bit more than what people think so much of is just wins and losses and all that kind of stuff. That's all going to be very important, right, at the end of the day. But it also is just a lot about the character and the type of person you are, and what you're going to help bring and build in that job or whatever. So that's a big part of it.
Yeah, I definitely would agree with that. I think that's the difference that I see from like professional versus college. Is college, I think it's easier to evaluate, right? Because it's like, did you hit? Yes or no? You know what I mean? And you have control over the hitters that you're bringing in too, from
Yeah.
a recruiting standpoint, versus on like professional side, you just kind of get who you get sometimes, and
Yeah.
it's harder to evaluate for sure.
Yeah. I agree.
What's a typical day like for you, maybe in the fall? I know you're obviously really busy with practice and everything, but like what would be like a typical day if you would take us through just, by what time you get to the facility and kind of what you're doing the entire day?
Yeah, so here we practiced a little bit later in the afternoon. So, depending on if we got small group work in the morning, like individual type of hitting or whatever. Our team practices are like, at 2 or something in the afternoon. So really just trying to get anything done in the office that we can. And then really spending that whole team time at practice for, 2.5, whatever, how many hours that we're going that day. And then they'll lift. Their lift is right after practice. So that'll go, for another hour. And then really wrapping up with that. We may have a camp, hitting clinic or something that night too. But that's usually how like a 20-hour or like one of those weeks would go those
I
days.
gotcha. And then what about during the spring season?
It's really the same kind of way. Practice may be like a little bit lighter, depending on what kind of week that we have. But yeah, that's what it usually looks like. We, being in Illinois, we have to practice indoor, for a good portion of the beginning of the year. So sometimes the schedule can get tossed around with just, every sport's got to get in there. So just figuring that out, but really it runs the same way. Practice, weights, all that stuff.
And then do you do hitters meetings before a series with the team?
Yeah, usually, yeah, we'll watch film, scout video. That's a big part of it, talk about who we're going to see, what we're going to be up against. And then, even game days, right after games, analyzing that film too, trying to be better for the next day. So that's something that's really big. You got to be able to know your swing, to be able to watch it and be able to make, next day adjustments.
Gotcha. Awesome. Well, Rachel, it's been a ton of fun. I appreciate you coming on and doing this, and definitely wish you the best of luck in your first year at Eastern Illinois.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.